rather than actually do two shows, the two quick live shows tonight, we're just going to do one and we're going to split it up. Welcome to a special edition of the GC24 Sports Note coming to you live on YouTube right now. We're going to actually talk about, this is not a Wise Guys show. Mike actually has other obligations. Otherwise, he was going to jump on this weekend. I believe he's got a graduation party for his older son. Congratulations. Go out and order, because I know he'll be watching this in a little bit. But the NBA and the NCAA apparently have both lost their damn mind. As you can actually see, Kevin Durant, USC, and UCLA all want out. According to a report from Tim Bontemps from ESPN at approximately 3 Eastern time, Kevin Durant requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets on Thursday. His business manager, Rich Kleiman, told ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. The report actually says this is incredibly rare for Durant for a player of his caliber to request a trade, but let's also be completely honest. He's the second one of that team that's actually asked out, and it's the second time he's done it in his career. What do I mean by that? He just signed a 4-year, $194.2 million extension with the Nets back on August 8th of last year. We're not even 11 months from when he signed that contract. And look at the terms of that extension. He's going to be going from 44 up to 54, almost basically 55 million by the time that contract expires, and he's going to be 37 years old. Let's also remember that he wanted to be traded out of Golden State after winning back-to-back titles. This is proof that Kevin Durant is the biggest crybaby in the NBA. There's no way to sugarcoat this. Draymond Green might be the most classless player in the NBA for his on and off the court actions. But Kevin Durant is nothing but a spoiled, petulant child. He is essentially the Colby Covington of the NBA. And you guys know how I feel about Colby Covington if you've seen recent posts. Basically, if he doesn't get his way or if he gets bored, he takes his ball and goes home. He knew that he couldn't beat the Warriors when he was with Oklahoma City, and he had James Harden, another crybaby, and Russell Westbrook, another crybaby. They couldn't beat Golden State. So what happened is, it's well documented that Golden State wins the 2015 championship while the Cavs are basically playing LeBron on everyone and still goes to 6 games. Then the Cavs are completely healthy in 2016. The Cavs come from 3-1 down, win that series. Draymond Green, essentially crying like a little girl in the parking lot, calls up Kevin Durant, says, "Hey, come play here." Durant signs with the Warriors, wins back-to-back championships. Oh yeah, on a team that was 53 and a half seconds away from repeating against the Cavaliers in Game 7 in 2016, and then would have ended up winning 4 straight had things just lined up the way that they were, had Kyrie Irving not hit that shot, and the ball doesn't bounce the Cavs' way, and then the Cavs now are then Cleveland's talking, instead of a 52-year drought, we're looking at a 58-year drought, because now we are 6 years, as of, I want to say, like last week, 6 years from that championship. But again, Durant goes and signs up as the second or third best player in the league at the time, with the greatest regular season team in the history of the game. And excuse the noise in the background, some moron joyriding down on his crotch rocket. But Kevin Durant has absolutely no leg or credibility to stand on anymore. If he basically, the Nets go and build this super team, which I said in a previous post when when it originally happened, was going to blow up in their face. They go out and they get Kyrie from the Celtics at the time. They go out and they make the trade and they get Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons turns into an absolute, joke, and is turning quickly into a first overall bust who, is never going to live up to his potential. Kevin Durant is still a top 5 player, but can't stay healthy. And then when he is, granted, yes, he is a great player, but when you're paying all that money to him, Kyrie, everybody else, all their other stars, they've got no room to where they've even got no luxury tax, room at that point. And, the ownership is not going to end up paying a $400 million luxury tax bill at that point. So Durant, we know how he basically avoided Russell Westbrook after that whole thing blew up in Oklahoma City. We remember the shot that, even tongue-in-cheek, that Peyton Manning took at him at the ESPYs in 2017. It's where the joke was that he would actually he wants to go start for the Fabulous Five gymnastics team after their dominance at the Summer Olympics, but they wouldn't start for that team. And then he points the camera straight at Russell Westbrook, who's just trying to hide his face. And I don't know how much of that was rehearsed. I don't know how much of that was a shoot. But we all know that Durant loves to cry and piss and bitch and moan. Doesn't really say a whole lot, is a relatively private guy. That's about the only thing for him, but actions speak louder than words. And his actions show that he might be, according to going back to the graphic here, he's 33 years old. He's going to be 34 by the time the next season starts. But he's basically got the stand-up qualities of somebody half his age. He's really no more than a teenager. We're going to take a 2-minute break because that's my father calling, and we'll be right back. All right, guys. Hopefully that phone call couldn't be heard. I hope I got everything cut off with that properly. I think the next time Mike and I end up doing a Wise Guy show, possibly next weekend, I'm hoping worst case the weekend after. The next topic we're going to discuss here, I would actually like to be able to have a couple of guests, including my father, Jim Cornetti Sr., who is a diehard Ohio State fan, just like Mike, but you're going to see why I want him on more than anything else. The other big news that came out today is the fact that USC and UCLA are moving from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten in 2024. The question I have is, No, I didn't freeze. It's this is USC and UCLA have been interstate rivals for over 100 years. We know it's the crosstown showdown. We know the legendary rivalries, the legendary games in the past. We know UCLA's dominance in basketball and baseball. We know USC had a very good baseball program, and still to this day does. Not to the caliber of USC. We know that UCLA's got probably a top 5 women's softball program. We know that they're perennially an NCAA tournament team. At the very worst, a Sweet 16 most years. They've been to a Final Four. They were national runner-up a couple of years ago. No, I take that back. I believe they lost on that half court heave in the bubble with no time left. You'll have to forgive me on that one. But this move makes, I understand that with Oklahoma and Texas moving to the SEC, that the Big Ten had to go out and make a major splash to be able to keep up. And this is now them getting in on the Super Conference game. The problem is look at the proximity that's involved with this. And I'm going to throw a graphic up that's going to stun a lot of people. If you take the eastmost team in the Big Ten, which would be Rutgers in Piscataway and East Brunswick, New Jersey, and you actually have them go cross country to face either USC or UCLA, look at that. That's 2,750 miles each way. So let's say something lines up to where it's a rotating schedule, where you play each team in your division in the Big Ten, and then you get that one game out of conference. That means that USC or UCLA would have to fly 2,700 miles cross country, or Rutgers for the quick payday and the blowout, and then basically get on a flight and fly 5.5, 6 hours back. And then prepare for a game 6 days later, where you're basically losing a half day worth of travel right there. This also means that if you're going to balance the divisions, if you go to 14, you're going to have to take, because you're going to have 2 more in that West division, you're going to have to take 2 more. You're going to have to take at least 2 teams and move them over to the East. Indiana's the most logical one. But it also means that if you're going geographically, you've got the possibility of Illinois or the Northwestern in there, which means you'd actually have to break up the Illinois, the Champaign and Chicago type rivalry, unless you actually keep them on the schedule against each other every year. Could it also mean the possibility that the Big Ten might pressure or open the door for, I don't want to say a school not pulling their weight, but a school that might actually not, generate as much, revenue like possibly a Rutgers, like maybe a Nebraska, to explore some possibilities. It's now with could Nebraska possibly return back to the Big 12? Could we possibly see the Big 12 essentially kind of dissolve and some of those other schools start moving elsewhere? Could you see Rutgers possibly going to like the ACC or something of this nature? This also means with this move, the Big Ten now holds 2 of the top 5 biggest rivalries in college sports. You've got naturally Ohio State, Michigan. You got USC, UCLA. You've got the Red River Shootout, which is Oklahoma and Texas. You could probably make an argument for Army Navy no matter where it is, but that's primarily football. And then take your pick of a couple of them in the SEC, which kind of rotate depending on who's hot. Is it Auburn, Alabama? Is it LSU, Alabama? Is there somebody else in that mix? It used to be Florida State. It could be Miami, Florida State. But really a lot of those teams have kind of been middle to a little bit above average. They haven't been elite, but it's still a very good game every year. But the problem with this is that it's great on paper for basketball and baseball, but it's terrible for football, which is why it's being done. Because again, you look at the travel, USC and UCLA have really fallen off in terms of football in recent years. USC, yeah, they're a top 25 at times. They're a top 15 program, but Oklahoma and Texas moving to the SEC, Oklahoma is more often than not a BCS group of they're a BCS qualifier. They're a Big 12 champion. Texas is a team that likes to play spoiler. USC could potentially play a little bit of spoiler in that West Division. UCLA probably not. I mean, it definitely means that you could have as many as 10 or 11 teams get into the big dance from the Big Ten. And you could actually have as many as 12 teams getting into postseason play if you add in the NIT and the CIB in postseason tournaments. It definitely bolsters the Big Ten baseball with both of those programs now entering the fray. But what this also does is this actually now essentially alienates schools in your own conference by going to all these super programs and these super conferences. And I understand, yeah, it's about the money and it's about the TV contracts. But the problem is that when you've got your Rutgers, you've got your Indiana, I mean, albeit, outside of the last few years, you've got your Northwesterns, again, albeit outside of the last few years, you've got your teams who kind of jump up and surprise people, but generally are kind of cannon fodder or cage linings, in the Big Ten. They're filler, they're middle of the road. At best they might qualify for a Christmas week game on ESPN as opposed to a primetime game or a New Year's game or, God forbid, a BCS game. You get the same thing in the SEC with like your Vanderbilts, Kentucky more often than not, Tennessee with the way that they've regressed, Mississippi State more often than not. Teams that are there and them to be in the conference, but they can't recruit because of all the other powerhouses there. You're basically now going to be able to go out. The Big Ten, if you look at the recruiting dominance you've got, and this is in no particular order, you're going to have the prime pickings are going to be Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, to an extent Michigan State, and USC. And where does that leave really much of the rest? In the SEC, you've naturally got Alabama, you've got Florida, you've got LSU, you've got Oklahoma, you've got Texas, you've got Mississippi State definitely coming up. A lot of people still like to go to Tennessee and try and turn that and help, turn that program around because for whatever reason, people still think Tennessee is relevant. But yet again, what does it do for the rest of your conference who can't go out and get those top 5 recruits to be competitive? It also essentially takes your mid-major schools and conferences like your MACs, like your big, like the WAC, so to an extent. I mean, the Big East doesn't really do football much anymore, or anything like it used to. The American, it actually takes all of those mid-major or group of 5 conferences and it devalues them even more, just because now they're going to be the Tuesday night game or the 5 o'clock game that you stumble through or change the channel before you get to the marquee game, which to an extent a lot of those were before, but the games were a lot more competitive because you actually had a possibility of one of those, like a Cincinnati last year, crashing the party for the BCS. You're basically going to see that the BCS is now going to be, you're going to see essentially 4 super conferences here. I could almost see a scenario where after this, the Pac-12 and the Big 12 potentially merge and form their own type of super conference because it's geographically, beneficial for them. But again, that turns into a cluster as well, because now you've got, if that were to happen, you've got West Virginia having to go to like Washington or Washington State or Oregon. They've essentially got to go cross country. It would be like Penn State having to go there for the proximity that would be involved. But I think this is, as my father, a diehard UCLA basketball fan, going all the way back to the John Wooden era, this is going to make really all of the other sports, with the exception of football, this is going to make this very, very exciting in the long term. In the short term, with football, which again drives everything in college sports, or at least 3/4 of it, if you think about it, and certainly the entire fall going up against the NFL just on the day before, naturally. But this is definitely something where it's as intriguing as it is catastrophic, because there's a no-win situation for just about everybody involved. UCLA is going to end up taking a hit with football. With this, at least they would actually have a chance to compete and possibly surprise some teams for a Big 12. For a Pac-12 title. USC could potentially, rise up and get that again. And that's definitely not going to happen now that they're coming into the Big Ten. But I want to thank you, everybody, here for joining me. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. You can also find me on Twitter. The link will be actually down here below as well. And we will certainly let you know when Mike and I schedule our next episode of The Wise Guys. We definitely want to get on Natalie Turk from Sports Illustrated to be able to discuss the Deshaun Watson thing. Especially now that reports are that the hearing is over and now we're actually just waiting on the punishment. And quite honestly, if it's anything less than 1 year, I'm going to be severely, severely disappointed. But that's actually something we can discuss with Mike and Natalie. We've also got baseball in full swing. The Guardians playing extremely well as of late. I mean, really not so much after the last 10, but after getting swept by the Red Sox and taking 3 out of 5 against Minnesota, they're still only 1 game back in that division. Mike's Mets barely clinging to the lead in the NL East, and NBA free agency opens up. I want to say about this time tomorrow. The Colorado Avalanche just winning the Stanley Cup. I cannot stand that, but again, it's lesser of two evils at this point. Just shows you how dominant and how great that Central Division is. And then before you know it, we'll be talking training camps. NHL free agency will be opening up. I might actually, I don't want to say do a draft show, but I might actually jump on and do something for the free agency rush when that opens up. A lot of big names going to be out there. But again, let me know what you guys think down below, and we will see you guys soon. Take care.